Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today we're talking about going back to basics. Apologies, throat is getting better slowly, but it's happening. So, I have realized that I've kind of fallen off a little bit, not in terms of what I do for my career or my personal relationships or anything, but for kind of like my own comfort level, my own health, my routine, the things that keep me happy and healthy and grounded. And I realized that every now and then, uh, I need to go back to basics. And what I mean by this is I feel like who I was 2, maybe 3 years ago was actually kind of hitting a stride, hitting a really good moment in my life. And that involved consistency, that involved lots of running at the gym, drinking a lot more water, refusing to go out, partying a lot, and I realized that every now and then you have to appreciate where you've come from, and sometimes you have to go back there. My dad is a big proponent on never looking behind, never trying to repeat the past. And he just has this internal philosophy that is all about constantly changing, constantly growing, constantly getting better. And while I can agree with that in some ways, I do think every now and then you hit your stride and you hit like a really good moment in your life. And I'm not saying that I'm not happy with the way my life is and everything isn't going great, because on the whole, everything is going great. My career, it's finally summer. My personal relationships, my family, my friends, all of that stuff is going really well. But I just feel as though I could be doing better personally, like as little things like skincare routine and flossing and, little things like that, that I realized I was much better at doing maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. And so I've made a personal commitment to go back to some of that stuff. I'm not I'm not necessarily retracing my steps, but I want to get back into the routines that I thought really did well for me. And when you're doing well, you're constantly wanting to, pick up new things, new ideas, and you're going, okay, well, I need to be doing this. And then you watch a video about how you shouldn't be using this skincare product, you should be doing this, and you shouldn't be eating like this, you should be intermittent fasting, or you should be doing this or that. And over time, while you're at your peak or you're doing really well or you're at a good moment in your life, you start incorporating things that necessarily aren't the best for you, or they're not optimal. Everybody has a different body, and the idea that, oh, you watch this video and it really worked for these people, so you have to do it, that is not always the right advice. And sometimes you have to just know yourself, trust the process, and hopefully you'll have a good enough memory or a good enough record of what you were doing, so that if you ever decide that you want to maybe encourage some of those things that you used to do, you can do that. And that's exactly my philosophy for this summer. I'm going back to basics. If you were around during New Year's, you know that my resolution was to simplify my life, to make it a little easier. And I feel like the first 2 months, I was really good with that. And then everything got chaotic and crazy, and I fell off my routine that sets me, and it makes me feel normal, it makes me feel good, it makes me feel encouraged. And I fell off of that. And so now I'm attempting to retrace my steps a little bit and get back to where I want to be. And so I thought I would give you some updates and some ideas. Sorry, little spider guy. I thought I would give you some ideas on how exactly you can do that if you feel like, man, a few years ago I was just killing it and I was doing so well. How do I get back to that point? That's what I'm trying to do. So these are the steps that I'm doing. First of all, I am setting my routine a lot more rigidly. I feel like a few years ago, I was really good at setting my priorities. All of my friends knew that I went to bed at 8:30. I stopped responding to people. I stopped making plans. I got ready for bed. I had my nighttime routine, and that helped me hugely because that set my sleep cycle really well. And I feel like one of the biggest problems I'm having right now is that my sleep cycle is so disturbed and it is so janky, for lack of a better word. So unfortunately, to all my friends and family, I am reinstating the bedtime curfew. And that's not to say that, if somebody makes plans and we want to hang out Friday night or whatever, that I'm going to say no. But especially weekdays and every other weekend, I would like to have a rigid sleep pattern, because I am naturally a morning person. And today was a great example of I got the right amount of sleep. I was up at 6 o'clock and I was at the gym nice and early. And that really had an impact on me. I saw all of the gym regular people that I haven't seen in 2 years because I changed when I was waking up and when I was going to the gym. And I have to say that has set my whole day up, because now I feel like I have energy. It is midday currently. I've had lunch and I just feel really good. And I haven't felt like I've had this kind of energy in a long time. It's been months of just feeling exhausted all the time, and that's a huge part of my sleep cycle. And I already mentioned it, but I've had lunch, and typically I was doing this like intermittent fasting thing for the last 2 years where I would only eat once a day, and it would be a really, really high protein meal, and it'd be great for building muscle and everything, but it doesn't make me happy, and it makes me lethargic. It makes me fatigued and tired. So I'm not doing it anymore. I've decided I'm going to incorporate the meals that I used to eat, lots of salads, lots of vegetables, some protein, lots of eggs, because I love eggs. But basically, I wanted to encourage my body the way I was doing it 2 years ago. So right off the bat, we have sleep, we have diet, we have exercise. At the gym, I decided to really start running again. I was in the habit of doing a 12K run every single day, and I fell off that hard. This was partly because I sprained my ankle 2 years ago and I couldn't do the long distance running that I was used to doing. But now I'm fully healed, and today I did a 5K, and I can honestly say to you that I feel so good. And that, I think, is a huge part of it. I think part of it is like the accomplishment of getting back into running and doing a 5K today. But the other part is I'm really invigorated and energized to get back to doing 12Ks a day, because that's just what my body likes. It feeds the anxiety. I get to listen to my podcasts and I meditate while I run, and it's super helpful. And I cannot believe the night and day difference of just going back to my routine and really focusing on the things I know my body loves. And that's the thing, is I feel like 2 years ago, past Jack, whatever we want to call him, he really knew what was going on and he knew what his body needed. And over time, I just slowly started letting things slip. And so this is another tip for you. Don't let things slip. Like, if you know that you're being personally lazy towards yourself and your own health, don't let that happen. Don't allow yourself to slip. And for me, it took 2.5 years to really get to a point where I was slipping so much that I was like, you know what? I've got to bring this back up to a standard that I'm comfortable with. And you don't have to be super hard or critical of yourself, but you do have to be honest with yourself and reflect and say, you know what? Like, as a 26-year-old, I was able to crush all of this stuff and get it all done super easily. Let's not make excuses. Let's not just pretend like, well, you're getting older, so you can afford to slip a little bit. No, actually, as you get older, you have to push even harder, and you have to stay locked in as much as possible. And I know that being locked in kind of comes with this like negative connotation online. You tend to get this kind of toxic masculinity of like, lock in, you don't need any emotions, you don't need any personal relationships, you need to starve yourself or eat way too much protein, and you have to be so rigid and read the Bible 3 hours a day. I'm not talking about that kind of locking in, okay? Like, I'm talking about a locking in where I feel comfortable, I feel great, I feel energized and motivated, and I also feel connected to the people in my life that I want to be connected to. The final thing is probably the thing I screwed up on the most in the last 2 years, and that is people pleasing. I feel like 2 years ago, I was pretty good at refusing to do things with people I didn't want to do. And now I've become such a people pleaser, and I want to be everybody's best friend, and I want to make everyone feel as though they're the center of the universe. And I'm going to stop doing that, because it is not great to be at every single person's beck and call. You need to absolutely prioritize yourself. This is part of the reason why my sleep cycle has been so screwed up. This is part of the reason why my diet has been so screwed up, because I've agreed to compromise myself for other people. And while that's great, it's built some great relationships. If the relationships that I've built over the last 2 years don't stand for me prioritizing myself, they're not relationships I want in general or in the first place. So I'm actually okay if these relationships kind of fall off. But if they stay, then it proves to me that these relationships were worth building, and that these are lifelong friends and family members that I want to be around forever. So those are that's my advice for when you feel like you have fallen off a little bit, when you feel like you're past your golden era. It is absolutely possible to feel as though you can attain that. You can get it back. And you don't necessarily have to retrace your steps or, go back to the same places, but you can utilize some of the things that you were doing at that time in your life. You always have to remember your body does get older, your metabolism slows. Like, there are some basic things that just change over time. 2 years is nothing compared to what many people have experienced. But I really encourage you, whether you're 13 or you're 30 or you're 93, make sure to prioritize how you feel, and make sure you're taking a record of what you're doing and how it makes you feel, because that way it's really easy to just jump back in or to utilize some of those tools. So I'm going back to basics. I hope it's going to be an amazing summer. I hope you're having an amazing summer. Let me know the tips and the tricks that you've used in your life, the things that you do to prioritize your own health and well-being that have really worked for you. I would love to know more. Be respectful of everyone else's tips. This is a safe space to make all of the right-wing crazy people angry, but it is a safe place where we can share ideas and grow and become better people. There we go. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this video helped, and as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.